As you dive into summer, consider how COVID-19 is spreading in your community when choosing activities. Outdoor activities and visits are safer than those indoors, but fully vaccinated people can participate in most indoor activities without much risk. If you are not yet vaccinated, you should continue to practice prevention strategies, such as wearing a well-fitted mask, practicing physical distancing, avoiding crowds, and washing your hands. For more than a year, many people have focused on staying safe from COVID-19. While this continues to be important, returning to regular activities when you are fully vaccinated, such as travel, events, and other social gatherings, can provide hope for days ahead. In addition, taking simple actions such as deep breathing, physical activity, healthy eating, practicing good sleep habits, and safely connecting with family, friends, and neighbors can improve your well-being.
The Center for Disease Control, or CDC, is asking Americans to wear masks to prevent the spread of COVID-19. It's important to remember for people who are victims of sexual assault that masks and face coverings can trigger anxiety and fear. Wearing a face covering can trigger memories of abuse, such as the feeling of having a hand covering your mouth or your face being pushed into a pillow. Wearing a mask can make people feel claustrophobic and cause them to lose control of their breathing. Victims, also known as survivors, have reported that not being able to see the faces of those around them is intimidating and makes them worried. Here are possible solutions. 1. Practice wearing your face covering at home. Take the time to get used to how it feels on your face. 2. Find the right face covering, one that is comfortable and doesn't irritate you. 3. Get creative. Maybe wearing a scarf or a handkerchief is less restrictive. 4. Make it smell good. Use a scent that makes you feel relaxed, like lavender. 5. Ask your loved ones for support. Take walks with someone you love to ease into wearing a mask in public. They can also help you find the right covering. We hope that victims and survivors are able to wear a mask safely, but if wearing a face covering causes severe distress, be confident in your decision to not wear one. No survivor should feel shamed for not being able to wear a mask. Stand with survivors in the days ahead. Please show your support for survivors by treating anyone who is not wearing a mask with compassion and dignity.
Let me pull out my thing. Or pistol. Hold up. Oh, dude, I gotta go.
Where you gotta go?
I gotta go bingo.
I gotta go bingo.
Because there's gonna be a lot of girls.
No way.
But you got any pickup lines I could use?
Oh, I got a ton. Try this one. Hey, girl, you wanna be the bunny to my popo?
No.
Man. Oh, this one always works. Hey, girl, you so OGL.
What's OGL?
Oh, nga la.
Oh, nah. I need something that could actually work.
Man, those always work. If they didn't, what would you even do?
I'll be like, hey, girl, you so fine.
Nah, man, that ain't cool, dog. It might be okay to pick up on a girl, but it's never okay to hit a girl. It's on us to stop domestic violence.
1 in 3 girls in the United States is a victim of physical, emotional, or verbal abuse.
81% of parents believe teen dating violence is not an issue.
All genders, female, males, and transgender, can be a victim too.
If you notice any sign of an unhealthy relationship, stop and do something.
Stop teen dating violence.
Teen dating violence. Teen dating violence is the physical or sexual abuse within a dating relationship. This girl was abused by her partner. She was hurt physically and helpless. There is no one she could turn to. She was all alone. She didn't have the confidence to speak up for herself. So please, speak up and take a stand. Stop teen dating violence and break the silence. With any questions, please call American Alliance 699-0272 and Blue Sky 699-2759. Thank you for watching.
I arm myself against COVID-19 for my community. Arm yourself against COVID-19 and get vaccinated today.
Talofa America Samoa, the COVID vaccines are here. Having a vaccine available is a really important step in ending the pandemic, and we have 2 types of vaccines here now, but they won't do any good stuck in a freezer. I know some people are worried that these new vaccines might need more study, but the data has shown that they're both safe and effective. Millions of healthcare workers have already gotten their 2 doses. You also may have heard about people feeling a bit sick after getting their COVID vaccine, but please don't let that deter you. The vaccine is designed to train your immune system to fight off COVID. Side effects don't last that long, and there's no virus in the vaccine and no preservatives to worry about either. Soon, it's going to be your turn. So get your questions answered now and be ready to line up as soon as you're able. We don't want you to miss out on your shot.
Good. How was bingo?
It was alright.
What happened?
I was in with the girl. Everything was working fine, but then she just stopped.
Man, she didn't even want you.
No, she did.
Did she
I
say
know.
no?
Yeah, but...
Man, no always means no. Watch. Dad, come here fast. Tell him.
Alright, check it, Uncle. I was in it with the girl, and we just got caught up in the moment.
Hold on a moment. No always means no. And yes does not always mean yes.
But her body language...
You need to respect that girl's choices. She's got the right to say no at any time.
What if her body language says yes?
No consent is no consent.
Makke.
During the COVID-19 pandemic, we may find that we have more stress. Stress helps us to get going, but what happens when it becomes too much? It's really important to be aware of the signs of unhealthy stress. This month, the Alliance and its health partners are going to share with you what we call Mental Health Minute American Samoa. In a minute, we ask you to keep in mind the following things. Have you noticed any big changes in your thinking, mood, and daily activities? Some of the signs of these changes can be your sleep patterns. Not sleeping enough? Or are you sleeping too much? Are your thoughts racing? Your eating patterns. Have you noticed you're not eating? Or you're eating more than you have before? Your moods. Are you finding yourself getting easily irritated or angry? Are you feeling sad or down more? Your interest. Are you not interested in things you used to enjoy, like reading, watching movies, spending time with friends and family? Your body. Are you feeling more physical pain or getting sick more often? If you notice that there are changes, stay tuned to see some helpful tips. Everyone is different, and some of these things may not apply to you. Remember, awareness is the first step to overall wellness. This is your Mental Health Minute, American Samoa.
Love shouldn't hurt. Domestic violence is not physical violence alone.
Domestic violence is any behavior with the purpose to gain power
and control over a spouse, partner, girlfriend, boyfriend, or intimate family member.
Abuse is a learned behavior. It is not caused by anger, mental problems,
drugs, or alcohol, or common excuse.
Domestic violence takes many forms.
Don't I look nice, babe?
No matter how much makeup you put on, by the end of the day, you still look ugly.
Where's the beer?
There's no more.
Then get more.
Stop. I'm not in the mood. I said stop. Babe, get up. What are you doing? Stop.
Hi. Can I please have some money to go to the doctor's appointment tomorrow?
Why you gotta see the doctor for? You know that costs money? My money? Just take the Tylenol that I bought for you. Hey, who you talking to? Remember, I know if you're hiding something from me. Get up. Wash the dishes, clean the whole kitchen and back.
Love should not hurt.
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 End the silence. Stop domestic violence.
Ia, o te whatalo whātu le pai ma le mamalu o e o loo mawhai o na awai mai, po loo whawhonga mai foi le tātou whātara noanga po le tātou porokalame i le aso. O nei, o le luas furu ma le valu o Iulai i le itu la e valu tai o nei i Amerika Samoa. Ia, o au le nei o Josephine Yose, pe te silfia foi o Fina, o le atau taia po le ataita i le tātou whātara noanga i le aso. O na manu lau ti o le whātara noanga, o le tai whainga masani fou. I wanted to welcome all those who can tune into today's program. Today is July 28, 2022 at 8 in the morning here in American Samoa. My name is Josephine Yose, also known as Fina, and I will be the Master of Ceremonies for today. The theme of this virtual youth summit is Leading the New Norm. This mission, or main goal of this youth summit, is being able to equip and educate our youth on how to self-advocate towards familial barriers and bringing awareness to the cultural norms that hinder our youth from growing. This is basically a continuation of the previous conversation on Reform the Norm in 2021, but being able to keep the conversation going throughout various taboo topics. We, the youth, wanted to speak to other youth and hear what they have to say on these impacts that have on them and their families, especially if there are any ideas or opinions that anyone would love to share during this time or during our breakout session. As a part of the Alliance, there is an internship program that is about 10 weeks long. It is an opportunity for individuals, high school and college students to experience the working environment as well as learning what impacts the Alliance brings to our community. These summer interns are John Yosef, who is working on his BS in Forensic Sciences and minor in Chemistry, Cameron Butler, who graduated with a BA in Human Development Health Services and who is now working on her BS in Nursing, Mariah Nautu, who graduated with an AS in Criminal Justice, Leilani Hurt, who graduated from Tafuna High School, and myself, who graduated with a BS in Psychology, minor in Forensic Sciences this past May. Not only has this program been very educational, but also a very nice way to meet new faces and, in my case, reconnecting with friends I haven't seen in a while. The five of us have been working and figuring out ways how we can adapt to today's day and age new norm, thus being the theme of our conversation. So, to start off this program today, we'll begin with the spoken word by John Yosef, but written by Mariah Nautu.
Thank you. All right. So thank you, Fina, for the opportunity. This is a spoken. All right. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. Um, Appreciate it. This is a spoken word by Marana Utsu called "You Are Still God." Matthew 28 verse 20 stated, "I will be with you always until the end of the world. When the storm settles, when the walls fall, when the night passes, you are still God, the Creator, the Maker, far greater than pain or pandemic, our Savior when it seems there's no ending, to trial after trial that hits us like waves. Who you are is proof that one thing remains, and that one thing is constant. That one thing doesn't change. Yesterday, today, and tomorrow the same. In the days things are great and we praise you are the same. In the days that we make your heart break, you are the same. Consistent, continuous, constantly here. In low valleys, high mountains, your presence is near. In the present, we tend to lose sight of the fact, but to see where we are from our past, it's so clear that through it all, you are still God. The God that's a light to the darkest of thoughts. The God that's a map to the wandered and lost. The God that's enough when He's all that we've got. The God that sees value and says, I'm worth the cost. The God that perfects us and loves us though we're not. You are the God when our feet hits a stop. You are the God that forgave us when we deserved hell. When you yelled, it is finished that night on the cross. Through it all, you are still God. Our strongest foundation, you are still God. In the midst of our storm, Lord, you are still God. When the enemy hears how these words instill God, he'll attack to remove you, but he cannot steal God. You are still God. So tell me, what sickness can break us? What fear can invade us? What media can tame us with the stories they make up? What can anyone say? What can anyone do to ever hide through it all? There's still you. Through it all, remind us again that you have a plan for your glory in the end. And Lord, until then, all we pray for is patience. Let us be the light to the ones who forgot. Let us remind them that you are still God. Thank you.
Thank you, John, for those words. I will now be moving us into the wellness check-in portion of our event. Wellness is a very important thing here we do at Alliance. It's a way for us to check in on one another mentally and emotionally to make sure we're all well. I will begin our wellness check-in with a guided breathing meditation, I'm sorry. So if we could all close our eyes. Now, with us closing our eyes, I want us to envision ourselves in a good and happy place, put ourselves there. Now we're going to begin the breathing meditation. I want you to please take one deep breath in, hold that in for just a second, one deep breath out. We'll do another deep breath in, hold that, please. And another deep breath out. And one more time, can we do another deep breath in? and a deep breath out. The next portion of this wellness check-in is I will be providing us words of encouragement. You are also welcome to provide words of encouragement throughout this event in the chat box. So anytime you feel you resonate with something that someone has said or you want to show support to someone, please just drop your support in the chat box. This can look something like you are smart, you are important, you are kind, you're doing great. So throughout this event, so please feel free to drop in any type of support you want to show that you agree with somebody. Now next, we will be moving on and I'll be showing you guys, sorry, my mic keeps cutting out, but next, after the words of encouragement, I will now be giving the floor back to Fina, who will now be introducing our board members.
All right, so thank you, Cami, for such an amazing start to our program today. It is also my pleasure to introduce the ASA DSV Board of Directors Vice Chair Fata Samuel Meleisea. He is a member of the American Samoa House of Representatives, representing District 15. Vice Chair Fata was about 25 years old, actually, at the time of representatives elections. He's the youngest representative in Fono history, but during his interview with Samoa News, he said he didn't run to break any records, but to help break down barriers for Tualauta District, our youth. And so Vice Chair Fata is greatly supported by his lovely wife Jody and beautiful daughter Athena throughout his time serving the community. So also, please help me welcome Vice Chair Fata Meleisea. Talofa Rep, can you unmute yourself and take it away?
Alofa, Josephine, Fafta I'm very grateful for the opportunity to be here with you all virtually to welcome all of our participants to today's virtual youth summit. I'm very grateful that we are also online with our executive director, Ms. Jennifer Tofayono. And unfortunately, all of my fellow board members are unable to participate this morning due to other unforeseen circumstances. But I do want to acknowledge our chairwoman, Dr. Julia Foifua, and all of our board members. They're wonderful people from all different walks of life. And we're very, very supportive of the work that the Alliance does. And we are also very grateful that Jennifer and her team are such wonderful, gifted, talented people who love our people. And it shows in the work that they continue to do in the community. So I also want to acknowledge some of our guest speakers for today. We have Kiso Skelton, Georgia Malaki, To'oa Matautia, Dr. Yaneta Timoteo, as well as Dr. Jean Anderson. And so we're very grateful that all of you could be joining us this morning, and I look forward to a wonderful dialogue between all of our participants, as well as all of our board members who are present, whether virtually or they're there at the office. And then looking forward to hearing from our speakers on a message that they would like to share with us today. Now, as Josephine has alluded to earlier, the theme for this year is leading the new norm. And so this is a follow-up from our last virtual youth summit. And I think it is very fitting that we use leading the new norm as the new theme this year, because throughout government, throughout the private sector, throughout the territory, I don't know about you, but I gradually continue to see youth taking more leadership roles, and they're starting to be more vocal in our community. They're taking more active roles in their churches, in nonprofits. So seeing that is encouraging to me, because when I first started off at 25 years of age, running for the House of Representatives, it felt like I was going up against a huge wave of older adults that were telling me, well, that's impossible. You're too young. But I strongly believe that you're never too young. You're never too young. And so I'd like to leave all of our youth participants with a few key pointers that I've learned along the way. One of the most important things in leading the new norm is it has to start with you. It starts with you and how you perceive the world. Most people see themselves as just a tiny little dot in a world full of 8 billion people. But when you look at it in a different sense, that the world is your oyster and it is in your hands, and that you can make a difference as an individual, I think you'll have a different perspective, and you won't be afraid to stand up for what you believe in. And so being able to lead the new norm, it has to start with the way you think, with the way you approach problems in the community, with the way you see yourself in the community. You're not just a young person, and your voice matters. It matters so much. And some people might be afraid of that. Some people might not value that. Some people might not respect that. But guess what? It doesn't matter what they think. It only matters what you think. And so having that perspective, that unique perspective, to see the world in a different lens and not be afraid of who you are and what you do in this world, that's how it starts. That's how you start leading the new norm. And it takes a lot of courage. It takes a support network like today, having the opportunity to network with other young people, with like-minded individuals, to build that self-confidence to lead the new norm. And in closing, it's just as important not to give up. You can't give up. It's so easy to give up. Anybody can give up. But to affect the new change, to really lead the new norm that we'd like to see in our community, in our churches, in our government, in our families, we have to have the courage to not to give up and continue pressing on. And so I pray and I hope that in forums like this, we can continue to foster and build these networks to encourage our young people to network with like-minded individuals, to build that self-confidence so that we can lead the new norm wherever we are, in whatever we're doing, because we can, all of us, individually, collectively, can lead the new norm. So thank you very much for this opportunity. I look forward to hearing our speakers, look forward to conversing with the rest of our participants today, and I am so very, very happy to see that our young people are taking the lead with this virtual youth summit. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much for those amazing words. Courageous conversations need to be made in order for us to make that move, in order for us to move towards a new future, new norm. But ole a whasolo le tato programa e tato keynote speaker. Na soifua mai o ia i le nuu o pangpango i Amerika Samoa. Mo se alo fasino ia pai foa Alex Skelton ma Pati Sepa Skelton. O ia o se uluwai sui a le Universite o Chaminade wa avea o se Truman National Finalist na maua ai lana whailonga o le Bachelors of Arts in Historical and Political Studies, minor in Psychology. I le lua afe luas fulmatasi na mawai lana whailonga o le Masters of Science in Legal Studies with concentration in Law and Public Policy, mai le California University of Pennsylvania. O lo ngā lue nei o ia i le ofisa o le whaipule a Amerika Samoa, i le laumua i Washingtoni. Sa whamanuia ina fo i kiso i se matapalapala i le ala i le suafa pule i malo, i le ainga o lona tina ma le suafa malanga marii, mai le whawhiangainga ia aingo fie. O ia se tangata e whiwhia tautua ma fisosoani i tangata, mai iai lona taritonunga ma lana langona e whapea. O le tasi lo tātou wala auina, o le ala o foina o se fesoasoani ma tautua mo le manuia lautele. Ma le awatele o te whailo atu ma tatou whaawhailoa I le sunga ya Kiso Skelton. Joining us today from the Bay Area, please welcome Kiso Skelton. Apologies.
Whaftai lava I le whonga o tātou prokalama fo'i ia mo lea fo'i tūlanga. A ngā sea lava lo whonga. Ai o tele I utu fia le vai na momo o iai le tui atua, nai moli na manu au sala. O te mua mua o na avel whaasao ia manu vāo ma o sula le alofa ma le anga le lei. O le tātou ta maa o I le langi. O na o lana pule whaasoi fua, ma le langi e mama ua whaamanu ia ina aisi o tātou atunu upele o Samoa. O le alofa leo le atua ua whaiva ese ai lo pepe le nei tai au fōu, o le tai au manino, tai au totoa, tai au e ese ma le mātango fie I le alofa ma le anga le lei o le atua. A wā o lea ua whatasia lupe sa vau ese ma ua tautolo ngā paa fo I le atutia I le tātou wheiloa inga I le nei tū la o le tai au. Ua tātou wheiloa I la I lumo nuu, ai le o tua o nuu, I pu e o manu ai leo pu e o mala. O na whaapele o se upu leo au na whaatau waa. Ia tele ia upu I manu ai iti upu I mala. O pa ia mamalu o Samoa le atunu utofi e amata mai le tai samsama o tui manu a se ia pa ia le tai ula ula o na whanua o te whaatulo watu. O le ale o se upu I mamalu ia ma pa ia a wae le ngā whatau lima ina e so leo ma so whaatau waa. Ai tau ia ina o pa I le vai o le tama ma o whapea atu. Tu lou lava. O le a whata ia I maunga wao o tau sā ma mamalu. E ngā whatau lima ina e le au fuelu loa. Ma whai upo le tātou atunu. A o le nei tū la, ia o le a avatu se langona. Ma se manatu, ia ai maise lava. I le au tū o le nei wha moe moe. E peo na atofa. O le sini au tū o le nei wha moe moe, ua whaulu tala ina e whapea. Tai, whainga masani fōu. Lead the new norm. E le to e tau whaailoa ina le tele o suinga, ua whiangai mai tātou, ai mese o le anoai o whainga masani fōu, o lo ua whape nā o na tātou whaatino ina. I le fontanga na wha au tū I le toe fuatai o mea ua masani ai, po le Reform the Norm Summit. Na o wha so ai I si o tātou atunuu ai meise tupulanga talavou. I le tele o suinga fōu, I le whaatino ina o la tātou wanganu Samoa. Whaataita inga, ua wha o ngā e tangata Samoa o loa palalangi. E sui ai le tele o vaenga o wha aloa longa, e peo le sua. O le vai lolo, ua whao ngā iai le apa inu po o le whanu waina. Ai tele ina le toi whao ngā ina le niu e peo na masani ai aso ana mua. I le so o tanga la mai le nāwhonu tanga, ma le whonu tanga le nei ua whao tū I le taita inga o whainga masani fōu. O le fesili e tūla I mai, o a whainga masani fōu o lo o mana o mia ai le taita inga tupulanga. Ma, o a fo ini awala, e mawhai o na whaonga ina e taita ina ai nei whainga masani fōu. Ina ua a whaatia le lalulangi I le COVID, na matua ia liai mai le tele o le whainga masani fōu le ua tātou whaatino ina le nei lava taimi. Mua, e le to e tau whaailoa le alualu I lungo nu mera, o le maualunga o mata upu tau sauanga I tono a inga, ma sauanga whaafeu swa inga, domestic violence and sexual abuse. Ua maita wina le siitia o nei numera o whaafita auli nei I to tonu le ngata si o tātou atunu a o le lalolangi a toa. O le neimta upu, sa pei e tapu o na tala noaina I tonu a inga, whaalapotopotonga, ma whaatasinga. Ai o le whainga masani fōu le ua maita wina e loo nei tangata whaatauwa. Ua a mata o na tala noaina ma ta upu nei tonu whaatasinga, tonu a inga, ina ia maua le malama ma le fesoasoani, ai meise ai lava le ripotia o nei winga whaatu whanua ma le pūlea. I leo, ma ofisa o le malo, ma whaala potopotonga tū ma oti, a wā se fesoasoani, e la vea I le soifua, ma le ola o i lātou o loo afia. Lua, ua whaatauaina tele le soifua maloloina nei vai teimi o le COVID-19. Ona o afianga o ngaonga o le COVID-19, i le soifuanga o oe mau, ua maitauina ai le whainga masani fou lea e pei o le whaatulangaina, e le ofisa o le soifua maloloina, o le whaongaina o le ufifonga, ai meise le vai e whaamamaina ai ao, ina ia whaaititia le pipisi o whaamai. Ua ese fo i nei vai taimi, sa le masani ana fia whaonga le hand sanitizer, ia nei taimi, ia o pe ua tofu al tangata mal hand sanitizer e whea rua i maia, le lei tele, whaataua lo soifua maloloina, ma ia puipuia oe, mai ia fianga o ngaonga o whaamai pesi. Tolu, o le anga nuu Samoa, ua te le lava lona swinga, i whainga fōu ia ua masani e sio tātou atunu, i nei ona pō, ua maitauina le whaongaina o le tupe, e sui ai le tele o whaatinonga le anga nuu, e pei o palapala malo, matonga. O nei whainga masani fōu uma, ua whaatinoina le toa tele tangata, ina ia whaafainga o fia ai le whaatinonga, o la tāanga nuu, ma la tāanga i whanua, whaasamoa. I nei whainga fōu uma, e ao lava o na ieini au wala e taita ina ai le whaatinonga o nei whainga masani fōu. Mua, ia whaaleo manatu malangona. O a uma whaafitau i o loo a fia ailo soifua, ia e sa ili mo se sosoani, ma fesili. E le mawhai o na maua se fufo, mo le whaafitau i o loo fia ngai ma oe, pe a e le fesili, mo se sosoani. E le mawhai fo i o na whaiti tia sa wanga i tono a inga, pe a whai e le ripotia i leo, ma mo lia tu la fono. E le mawhai fo i o na whaiti tia sa wanga whaafeu sua inga, pe a le ripotia i leo, ma mo lia tu la fono. Tupula ngai, ia langona lo leo, au al fefe tau tala ma sa ili sosoani. E whapena fo i tonu o nuu, ma whaala potonga, ese uma, ia langona lo leo, e wha sao ai ni whainga wha le tonu. O atu langa te mori mawina i tonu o le whainga malo, o loo wha le tonu, wha soa ia iau langona. O le malo e mo tangata, e pū lea e tangata. O le whautuanga, ia wha leo lo langona, i le wha alo, sa ili sosoane, ma ia aua le fefe, e whai le ngaluenga tonu, ma le sao. Lua, i le whainga maasani fōu i le whaatinonga o la tāanga nuu, o le whautuanga, a whai wa sui le whainga, ia manatua e whaatu mau lona whaavai. O lona winga, po a whainga fōu uma, ma whainga maasani fōu, e tā ua lava le whaatu mauina, o le whaavai o le anga nuu Samoa, a wā o le whatu le nā, o a tā mea sina. Tupula ngai, ia vea oe mataiala i tono o a inga, nuu male atu nuu. E so se tai lava, e le tule moe, ai moe ala, ma sa ili manuia. Ia sa ili awala, e pui ailo saunga le mu, ma lou soifua le lei. Ia sa ili awala, e fi le mu ailo soifuanga, e tusa ma suinga fou, ma le neifo i vai taimi, ua tato iai. Ile malea, po alu i tau ma suinga e fotua mai, ia tu mau pea le nganga ma ele ngā, ma le fi nau, ina ia tau nuu lau wha moe. Tupulanga, o le wha soa le nā, ale au na vai ma le wha tau waa mo nei wha moe. E whai masao i lo tā waa se e lua, e peo upu masani, e a o nei, ai a oe tai au. O tupulanga o le poutu lea e wha lango i aile lumana i manuia o le malo, nuu, a inga ma e kale sia, ai meise wha ala potuputonga. Ia amata atu nei la o nā awa o manongi, a wase lumana i manuia mo le tapo inga lea. Wha moe lea tua, ma tatalo ina ia tau lau o lau wha moe. Ma fua mai au ngā ruenga le lei, e whai ma wha manuianga, i nisi o tangata o loo mana o mia ina. E a vea foi nei taimi o te momoli atua i le wha aftai tele, i le ofisa o le Alliance, i le tamaitai wha aton sili, ma le mamano le au whai ngā ruenga, mo le wala au lia mo le nei wha moe. O la au tau pule lea, wha aftai mo le avanoa ua maua elo nei tangata wha atau waa ma le vai. E a vatu ai se manatu, ma se langona. Ma lo wha aftai mo ngā ruenga le lei, o lo au tau whaia pea, mo se o tātou atunu upele o Amerika Samoa. Ia whamanuia mai le atua e le whaamoemoe nei aso. Sau steni tu wama le fua matatala le whiri ali, ia whaatasi mai pea le tapa au siri lilangi ia la uma o le au ia. O se upu sala, a o se anga ua le tau tamali i lau sila sila, ia maru ave i fale i o tau finangalo, o te matua atu lava ilo o tau titi whaitama, e maangalo ai so a leu ma so vai vai. Ia manuia tele nei fontanga, so i fua ma ia manuia, a le a whai wina atu le pese, mo moli atua ia lo whaanga, mo o tau malava, ai meise si o tātou atu nuu, o lo tātou tofi mai le atua. Lo tanu moni ta te fia fia e sa ili mea e manui ai ia ulu o la fai manu tu mau o Samoa ia mo o mia inu e mamao Tama Samoa tene Samoa sauni mai ni ngā whaawhetai whaawhetai lo tātou nu ia tā losia lo tātou nu ia manuia. Whaafitai tele lava soifua ma ia manuia.
Whawhai tele kiso wa makangkangi mai au. Ia, ole a whaasora tata programa. But thank you so much kiso. Whaisinga lewa leto e whiro ai tā ua. Kamina ngā whau mai kiso e. Well, thank you so much for such empowering words and for sharing them with the community. From here, we will actually be able to take a quick 5-minute break and then head into our guest speakers. Please turn off your cameras, mute your microphones, grab some water, and see you all in 5 minutes. Please don't forget to check out our PSAs, but I'll see you all in 5 minutes.
As you dive into summer, consider how COVID-19 is spreading in your community when choosing activities. Outdoor activities and visits are safer than those indoors, but fully vaccinated people can participate in most indoor activities without much risk. If you are not yet vaccinated, you should continue to practice prevention strategies, such as wearing a well-fitted mask, practicing physical distancing, avoiding crowds, and washing your hands. For more than a year, many people have focused on staying safe from COVID-19. While this continues to be important, returning to regular activities when you are fully vaccinated, such as travel, events, and other social gatherings, can provide hope for days ahead. In addition, taking simple actions such as deep breathing, physical activity, healthy eating, practicing good sleep habits, and safely connecting with family, friends, and neighbors can improve your well-being.
I arm myself against COVID-19 for my community. Arm yourself against COVID-19 and get vaccinated today.
Hey, how was bingo?
It was alright.
What happened?
I was in with the girl. Everything was working fine, but then she just stopped.
Man, she didn't even want you.
No, she did.
Did she say no?
Yeah, but...
Man, no always means no. Watch. Dad, come here fast. Tell him.
Alright, check it, Uncle. I was in it with a girl, and we just got caught up in the moment.
Wala moment. No always means no. And yes does not always mean yes.
But her body language.
You need to respect that girl's choices. She's got the right to say no at any time.
What if her body language says yes?
No consent is no consent.
Makke.
One in 3 girls in the United States is a victim of physical, emotional, or verbal abuse.
81% of parents believe teen dating violence is not an issue.
All genders, female, males, and transgender can be a victim too.
If you notice any sign of an unhealthy relationship, stop and do something.
Stop teen dating violence.
The Center for Disease Control, or CDC, is asking Americans to wear masks to prevent the spread of COVID-19. It's important to remember for people who are victims of sexual assault that masks and face coverings can trigger anxiety and fear. Wearing a face covering can trigger memories of abuse, such as the feeling of having a hand covering your mouth or your face being pushed into a pillow. Wearing a mask can make people feel claustrophobic and cause them to lose control of their breathing. Victims, also known as survivors, have reported that not being able to see the faces of those around them is intimidating and makes them worried. Here are possible solutions. 1. Practice wearing your face covering at home. Take the time to get used to how it feels on your face. 2. Find the right face covering, one that is comfortable and doesn't irritate you. 3. Get creative. Maybe wearing a scarf or a handkerchief is less restrictive. 4. Make it smell good. Use a scent that makes you feel relaxed, like lavender. 5. Ask your loved ones for support. Take walks with someone you love to ease into wearing a mask in public. They can also help you find the right covering. We hope that victims and survivors are able to wear a mask safely, but if wearing a face covering causes severe distress, be confident in your decision to not wear one. No survivor should feel shamed for not being able to wear a mask. Stand with survivors in the days ahead. Please show your support for survivors by treating anyone who is not wearing a mask with compassion and dignity.
Welcome back, everyone, from our break. At this moment, I will be introducing our first guest speaker, Ms. Georgia Malaki. Ms. Malaki was born August 8, 1997, and hails from the beautiful village of Leone. She graduated spring 2021 with a double major in liberal arts and human services and currently works at Homeland Security. She is also the reigning Miss Teen Earth Queen of 2019 to 2020. Ms. Georgia will be sharing on the effects an individual has with the domestic and sexual violence from an LGBTQ perspective. Please unmute yourself and take the floor, Ms. Georgia. Thank you.
Greetings. Aloha. Aloha. Becky B. Hi. Okay. Talofa and good morning, everyone. For everyone tuning in, allow me to introduce myself. I am Georgia Malaki, and I will be speaking and elaborating on leading the new norm from the perspective of the LGBTQIA plus community. By myself. Okay, there was a previous discussion on reforming the norm. I'm not sure if it was mentioned,
Okay.
but
And that their topics for the speakers.
But last year, the Alliance had a similar summit highlighting reforming the norm, where Giles Salua was one of the keynote speaker. And these were some of the few that she had mentioned or discussed, such as sexual orientation, sexual discrimination, respecting preferred pronouns such as he, she, her, him, etc. Proper terminology, differentiating Samoan term mala and fafafine, which is mala is a everyday used word or slang, translates to curse, which many of the LGBT community find it offensive. And the term fafafine, which is an umbrella term for the LGBTQ members, but also translate to a specific group of homosexuals. She also mentioned the in-state boundaries between familial, cultural, religion, and self, limiting the power you give and how it impacts you. And lastly, spoke about unity and diversity. Okay. So for me, I find some of these issues in my family, my church, my surroundings sometimes, but usually, it's verbal abuse, and emotional abuse, and that has what do you call, made me like ulil ingufukaraka belay if lalau be heffering niya belay name calling. Name calling was one of the things that Mo'olwanga back in the days. That was the only thing that always hurts my feelings is name calling, verbal, but try to put somebody down, like all those harmful words. But as growing up, I find it like I'm handling the situation by I wouldn't mind you know, try to speak up for myself is to say ili mga follow ili try to look to the positive side of the situation. And so another thing that I know the wa afuring mo also yeah sorry. Another thing is we're now leading to the new norm by so these are my few key points that I pointed out that I just do my research and all that. Knowing self-value, and capability. These are the things that knowing self-value and capability is what we are capable of. Knowing self-value and capability. Knowing self-value is what we are capable of is vital into leading to the new norm and defeating the norms of stereotyping. Staying aware and informed, beware of your rights as a human being before you identify as any sexual preferences. You are human. Um, assertiveness. Assertiveness is being bold and having confidence to speak up for yourself. When you are inflicted, you must speak up. When you are harmed, you must speak up. Anything that is done wrongfully to you with the intention to harm, you must speak up. And trust a friend or a loved one or contact you with an intention to harm, speak up. And trust a friend. Childhood environmental trauma is real and can seriously affect your mental growth. And sometimes our family don't take us seriously due to shame in the family, community, or church, and they sweep it under the rug. But we can make a difference by speaking up. Transparency, be transparent with the people you trust and be open with them. A family member, a relative, a close friend, a cousin, a coworker. And another thing is boost your self-esteem. Disregard social expectation. You don't always have to exceed social expectation. You can pave your own way. I am a Fafafin and everyone expect me to act a certain way or talk a certain way and become the best of what I am. But I have to learn and I just give myself whether they accept me or not. It's no skin off my it's no skin off my back. You don't need to give into peer pressure because you don't think it'll make you cool. You are one of one and you don't need someone pressuring you into something you are not comfortable with because everyone else is doing it and it's okay to be different. Um, Incorporating say something as a community effort. So as of my conclusion to the LGBT, to the ally, to everybody out there who are facing domestic violence, there are safe havens out there for you. There's help, such as the Alliance, the Sophias, the Impact Club. Um, there are agencies in the government. We need to uplift, educate, stand up for domestic and sexual assault. Um, Stand up and speak up. Voice whatever opinion that you know that is right, and that'll be it for today. Thank you. Share that answer. Hello.
Hi, Georgie. Okay, so this is the time for any Q&As that anyone would like to share. Please type it in the chat box. I'm sure that Miss Lovely here would love to answer any questions if anyone has any.
Yeah, questions. Many questions that we fuck with. Anyone?
Aleai. Thank you, Georgia, for such an amazing and informative presentation, as well as sharing your experiences. The strength and courage to share is such an empowering move, especially for our youth today. So I give you so much props and famalokia. So thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to.
I will give the floor over to Leilani.
Our next speaker has been an influential in strengthening the response of sexual assault forensic examiner states in American Samoa, where she has developed an interprofessional collaboration between physicians and nurses to solve problems and carry out plans for victims of sexual assault. She graduated with a Master in Medicine Obstetrics and Gynecology on December 6, 2006. She has been the Vice Chief of the OBGYN unit since June 2011. She is the chairperson of the Medical Staff Continuing Medical Education Committee, and by law committee, she has been the project director and clinical provider for the American Samoa Family Planning Program since March 4, 2016. She is a member of the Pacific Society for Reproductive Health, PSIH, and an associate member of the Royal Australian and New Zealand College of Obstetricians and Gynecology. She is happily married to Sauta Ulisisiliaina of Lona Pangaloa and Bailoa, American Samoa. Dr. Yanitza will be speaking about teen pregnancies and ways that people around young mothers can support them in any way they can. Many of the ideas or stereotypes that revolve around this topic still seem to be controversial in our culture. Please help me introduce Dr. Yanitza.
Thank you, Leilani, for that beautiful introduction. It's a little after 2 p.m. here or almost 2 here in the Mile High City. So if I seem a little short of breath, it's the altitude and not the nervousness that speakers usually go through. Okay, so as Leilani has already mentioned, I am the project director for the American Samoa Family Planning Program. I would like to thank our Heavenly Father for making this virtual youth summit possible, and also thank our coordinating committee for this youth summit for the invitation to give a talk at this summit. I have no financial disclosures in giving this talk. Before I go on with my talk, I would first like to acknowledge our grantor, because every time we give a talk, when we are part of the family planning program, we have to acknowledge the grantor, which is the Office of Population Affairs. The Office of Population Affairs administers a Title 10 program, which is Public Law 91-572, and that law was signed into law by President Richard Nixon back in 1970. And the Office of Population Affairs administers this federal program, which is the only federal program that gives out the services regarding contraceptive services and preventive health services that people, mostly from low-income families and those who are not able to afford these services and those who do not have health insurance, are able to get these services through the Title 10 law. As I already mentioned, it's administered by the Office of Population Affairs, which is within the Office of the Assistant Secretary for Health, and it's under the Department of Health and Human Services. Recently received a grant, a 5-year grant, HPA 006539, and that grant started on April 1st, 2022, and will go on until March 31st, 2027. So that is Title 10. So I was asked to talk about teen pregnancy. Is teen pregnancy a problem? Well, in the United States, it is. And this is the scope of the problem in the United States. About 40% of females become pregnant before the age of 20. So that's 40% of females becoming pregnant during their teenage years. And half of these pregnant teens give birth each year, while around 45% of them have abortions. And 85% of teen pregnancies are not planned or unintended. And it costs US taxpayers about $9.5 to $11 billion annually. So what is the situation in American Samoa? We don't have data on the finances that deal with teen pregnancy. But we have this graph that we keep the data on every year. This graph shows the total births at LBJ every year over the last 7 years. And then it also shows the number of teenagers that give birth at LBJ every year. What we try to do at the Family Planning Clinic is to keep the number of teenagers that give birth under 10% of the total births at LBJ every year. So if you look at this graph over the last 7 years, we've been seeing a decrease in the number of births at LBJ. In 2015, it was never a little over 1,100, but now last year, it's a little over 700. And it's the same thing with the number of teenagers giving birth at LBJ. You see, in 2015, it was a little over 100, but now the number of teens giving birth over the last 4 years has been in the high 60s and low 70s. So if you look at the line on the bottom, where is percentage of teen births, we see that we've been successful from 2015 to 2020 in keeping that number of teenagers giving birth under 10%. But last year, it went back up to 10.2%. So we have our work cut out for us, but I think we can do it. So we'll look forward to the data from this year to see if we can get it back down to under 10%. So what are we doing about it, about this problem with teen pregnancy in American Samoa? Well, for our family planning program, we have outreach programs to the schools, both elementary and high schools, to church youth groups, and also community groups. In going and doing these outreach programs, we try to give teenagers, youth, adolescents information to empower them to make informed decisions and to make better choices. We try to give them information to empower them to examine the consequences of their decisions before they make poor decisions. So our outreach program is called Begins With Me, Teen Health and Teen Pregnancy Prevention Outreach Program. The Begins With Me concept was resulted from a collaboration between our family planning program and the reproductive health unit of the CDC and also the prenatal unit of the Department of Health at Tafuna Health Center. What was done was researchers from the CDC came to LBJ and did focus group discussions, held focus group discussions at LBJ and Tafuna Health Center. And there were 5 focus groups. 3 of them were female groups and 2 were male groups. And when they went back and transcribed these focus group discussions, this is the concept that they came up with, the Begins With Me concept. So from November in 2019 up till the end of the last grant that we had, the end of March 2022, we've been taking this outreach, this message out to the community, to the public schools, the public elementary schools. We've been to 21 of the 23 public elementary schools. The only elementary schools we haven't been to were the Ofu Elementary School and Aunuu Elementary School. And then we've been to all public high schools, including the high school in Nua. We've also been to youth groups and women's groups, church youth groups and women's groups in churches out in the eastern part of the island, the central part of the island, and also the western part of the island. And I'll touch some more on the Begins With Me concept in later slides. So the following slides will be the slides from some of the slides that we use in our outreach. Like for teen health, we try to explain to
the teenagers what teen health is. And so teenagers need to know that they belong to the age range of 10 to 19. And then there's another term that can be used interchangeably with teenager, and that term is adolescent. So they're told if they hear teenager or adolescent, it refers to them, that group in the 10 to 19-year age group. And then the definition of health that we use is the WHO definition, which states it's a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not just the absence of disease or infirmity. People need to know, especially teenagers need to know, just because they're not sick doesn't mean they're healthy. You have to have a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being in order for you to be considered healthy. What the other message that we try to take out to teenagers is that they need to know what they're going through right now during their teenage years. And what they're going through that right now is puberty. If they understand what they're going through, the changes they're going through in puberty, then they will be able to make the right informed decisions in their response to the things that come their way in their lives. So puberty is the process of physical changes through which a child's body matures and becomes an adult body capable of sexual reproduction. And that's what puberty is a child's body transitioning from a child into the body of an adult that is capable of sexual reproduction. And we teach the kids that all these happens starting from the pituitary gland, which is also called the master gland, secretes hormones that reaches target organs. In this case, the reproductive organs, testes in the males and ovaries in the females. And when those hormones reach those target organs, then those target organs release other hormones that cause changes that they're going through. So if they understand that, then they will know that puberty is normal. It's a part of normal growth, and it's a normal part of life. And if they understand that, then they can use the other information that we give them to help make choices, good choices instead of bad choices. So what are the changes that they're taught about that occur during puberty? Well, they're already going through some of them, so they will recognize some of the changes. For females, they start off with pubarchy, which is the onset of hair. We all know that when we are teenagers, we start getting hair in our underarms, in our legs, in our private areas. You can also start getting pimples, acne, and start sweating. And then the bacteria in the underarms results in a body odor that some of us get during this time. And then there's thearchy, or the breast development. Then girls start to have, and their mothers have to start looking for bras to help them with their breast development. Then the last change that occurs during puberty in females is menarche, or the onset of menstruation. When this happens, that means that the ovaries, due to the hormone messages that it receives from pituitary, have now released the egg. And if the egg is not fertilized, then it just sheds out as menstruation at the end of every monthly cycle. But when this happens, then that means because the egg is now being released, if that teenager has sexual intercourse, then they're capable of getting pregnant, whether they're 10 years old or 14 years old or 18 years old. As long as that egg is getting released every month, and if you have sexual intercourse, you're able to get pregnant during your teenage years. So that's one thing to remember. If there are teenage females here in our audience today, keep that in mind. Once you start having your periods, you're able to get pregnant if you start having sexual intercourse during your teen years. Well, boys or males also go through changes during puberty. As we've seen with girls, boys can also have pimples or acne. They also have developed facial hair changes. Boys can even have breast growth, and that's normal part of health. And also mood swings. When I looked at these slides, I had to laugh because they put mood swings here with the boys when they should have put it with the females. But then we know boys can also have mood swings just like girls. So, and again, girls, boys, keep in mind, once you go through these pubertal changes, you're capable of impregnating or getting someone pregnant because now your testes have received the message from the pituitary gland and is now producing testosterone and producing spermatozoa, and it's that sperm that fertilizes the egg after sexual intercourse and causes the girl to become pregnant. So that's the message that we try to take to the teenagers. Once they go through these changes, once these changes are complete during their teenage years, they're able to get pregnant if they have sexual intercourse during their teenage years. If it's something they want, fine. But as we saw with the other slide, 85% of females who get pregnant during their teenage years are not planned. They don't intend to get pregnant during that time. So it's something for them to think about during that time. This other slide, last slide, is also included in our outreach. I'm not going to go through the slide. I just want to show it because that's one of the slides that we take out to the teenagers to help them. The apple in the middle is also in the shape of a heart. So think of it as your heart or an apple tree or a heart. And then all those branches that go out from the tree or the heart are what helps keep that heart functioning. Because without a healthy heart, we'll die. So research has shown a combination or a balance of these four things that I will mention in these branches will help you have a healthy life, and especially in teenagers or adolescents, a healthy adolescent life. If you look at the brown branch there on the left lower part of the slide, that is a nutritious diet. You need to eat a nutritious diet, not eat junk food. You see there, you don't see any junk food on there. And then the green branch on the left upper part of the slide is sleep. You have to sleep, get enough sleep during the night, 8 to 10 hours of sleep at night in order to be healthy. And then the blue branch on the right lower is regular exercise. You have to do that to get your heart pumping. And then last branch, the blue branch on the right upper, is you need to decrease your stress. So if you have a balance of a nutritious diet and getting adequate sleep, getting regular exercise, and no stress in your life, then you will have a healthy life. And that's why we use this slide in our outreach to the community. So again, why we do the outreach to the teenagers, to the schools, the youth, church youth groups, is because education is power. One of my medical professors once told us that a little learning is a dangerous thing, and he's right. So by educating the teenagers, by giving them the right information on their health concerns, by giving them the right information on contraceptives if they want it, then we're empowering them to make the right decisions for their lives. Another part of our outreach is a birth control method, which is abstinence. We all know abstinence is not having sex, but this is the 100% way to prevent a pregnancy. And that's what we tell the kids. If you don't want to get pregnant, then don't have sex. But if you cannot abstain from having sex, then be smart and use a birth control method, because preventing an unintended pregnancy is very important for self-fulfillment and for self-responsibility. So this is my last slide. Again, begin the concept. I've already informed you about how we came up with that concept. But what these men and women in the focus groups were really saying in those focus groups was, if you want to prevent an unintended pregnancy, then you have to put your health first. And if you put your health first, you have to learn about the health benefits of birth control as a measure of your overall health. If you want to prevent an unintended pregnancy, you have to plan and space your pregnancies. And because if you plan and space your pregnancies, you're actively preparing for a healthier future, because a healthy future begins with me, begins with you, as our representative said earlier in the summit. So that's from me. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Yanitsa, for providing such great information. Uh, Great points about early family planning. It's such a huge thing overlooked when doctors tell families to prepare, but it's something that we should all take in consideration for anyone in any situation. Now being able to understand that we can give support and where we can find support, I hope that we can share that with the rest of our community who aren't able to make it to today's session. But does anyone have any questions for Dr. Yanitsa? What is the process for teens to have access to birth control?
The process?
Yes. So one of the questions.
Yeah. So what we've been trying to do with our outreach is also increase awareness about access to birth control methods. We're the only place where you can get birth control methods in American Samoa. So the family planning clinic is located at LBJ, and we're in the door to the clinic faces the back parking lot. So right now, since the pandemic, we've been going through an appointment system. So you can call the hospital, have them put you through to the family planning clinic, and you can make an appointment with our administrative assistant to come in for a method. We have after hours for those who are in school. And we might try and restart our Saturday clinic because we stopped that all when the pandemic started. But that's the only place where you can get contraceptive methods, is the family planning clinic. And everything is confidential there. You do have to sign a consent, but everything is kept confidentially. No one will know that you were there.
So another question in the chat box, it says, in regards to the hormones, and most people call it the bees and the birds, do you think puberty is such a non-existent conversation with parents and children?
Yeah, we still, when we go out to the women's groups, there's still women who have that problem, talking to their kids about sex education, because you all know it's against the law in American Samoa to teach sex education in the schools. And even to this date, I mean, we had that when we were teenagers, and even now, you think we'd learn and we'd be able to talk to our own kids about the birds and the bees and all that. But that problem is still there. But if it makes it easy for people, you can come by the clinic if privacy is what's needed, or if the parents want us to give some data to their kids, then certainly can be done.
Okay. Another question in the chat box. So it goes back to one of your answers earlier. Do you have to get a parent's consent if you're under 18?
The family planning is the only program where a teenager can sign their own consent form. And once they sign that, we are not, we're bound by law not to inform even the parents. So contraceptive methods is the only place where a teenager, a child can sign a consent and will honor that consent and not inform their parents or anyone else. All your medical records will be confidential.
I see, I see. So
But it's always good for parents to bring in their children because
yes,
that's another thing with our program, family participation. So that it shows us that the parents, as well as the other siblings, have a say in what that the teenager is going through.
yes. Another question, it says, do you think teens' birth will increase or decrease because of this pandemic?
Well, the years of the pandemic, 2020 and 2021, it's in the low 70s. So um, I don't know. We'll have to see. But my guess is going to be low, and it's because our birth rate has been declining. So I think if we can keep it there in the high 60s and low 70s, then we'll be okay. Because the kids are staying home too. They're not going out during the pandemic, so they're not mingling around out in the communities. They're staying home, so maybe it's not going to go up. That's my guess.
Okay. So let's see. One final question for you, Doctor. And how have you and your team have been able to have these kinds of conversations, especially with these families that are very conservative? So, like, in what ways
Right.
possible?
How we've been taking the message out, we've been
Yes.
fortunate. We've been fortunate. Um, when we go out to the church youth groups, it's not just the teenagers that are there. It's also the parents. Also, the parents are there and the members of the clergy. And we found out when we've been going out since November 2019 that they're very supportive and they want their kids to say something. You know, when we have our parents there, we're not going to say anything. We're going to have them do all the talking. But that's our experience over the last 2 years, taking this message out. When the parents are there, members of the clergy who are very conservative are there, they're telling the teenagers, the kids, to speak up because they want to hear what their kids want to say. And so that's the opportunity for the kids to speak up because that's the only time they'll get to speak up. And that's a better time to speak up when there's a lot of people around so they get okay and get that it's better to take it out to the church youth groups. And even with the schools, with the administration, the DOE administration was also very supportive of us and was able to allow us to go into the schools, going through the health classes instead of teaching about sex education. We're teaching them about their health. So that's how we were able to go to the schools.
All right. Thank you. I'm sorry, there is one more question in the chat. So it says, what type of support that is mostly needed by young girls who are becoming pregnant?
The type of the support they need is mainly from their family. I know during our time, there was not that much family support, but these days, now that my generation, their kids are having kids themselves, they're very supportive. And that's what I've noticed working at the OBGYN unit. The girls the teenagers that come in pregnant have good support from their families. And that's good. for them.
Thank you. Dr. Yanitza, it seems like you and Georgia have a lot of love in the comment box.
Oh, thank
If
you.
you if you do, please feel free to type them in the chat box. And if you have any questions for our guest speakers, please feel free to keep asking those questions throughout the youth summit. But
Okay.
now,
Thanks again for having me.
thank you for coming. It's a pleasure to meet you, Dr. Yanitzo. So moving on, we have our third guest speaker for today. So, as a Fife House kid, she grew up in the Ifakasa, the mother church. As a member of the Sunday school, choir, youth, women's fellowship, and the congregation. For the last 14 years, she has served under the ministry of Reverend Isaako and Loretza Matautsio of the Ifakasa of the village of Masausi. Hailing from the renowned villages of Nuuli, Fangasa, and Saliaumua, and currently residing in Masausi. She is a proud alumni of the Samoana Sharks, American Samoa Community College Chiefs, and the Gonzaga Bulldogs. She has received an AA in liberal arts from our local community college and an English BA from Gonzaga, which allowed her to teach literature in the Catholic education at the home of the Crusaders and Cougars, Fa'asao Marist High School. She was an active teacher in and out of the classroom, offering her support in academics, athletics, and life. Even as she made a career switch to serve the people of American Samoa with the Workmen's Compensation Commission Office, she continued to remain present and diligent in the lives of her students. She believes the youth is the key to a better tomorrow because change lies in their hands. But we must come together to lead, nurture, and support them in any way possible and watch the magic happen. Togetherness can go a long way. And one proverb stated, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Without further ado, here is a humble servant to the youth and all of American Samoa, Mr. Oa Matautio.
Thank you for that introduction, John. Thank you, Alliance, for having me, and great presentations to the speakers that were before me. Definitely a lot of things to take in. So the topic for today is leading the new norm. And I wanted to specifically speak on behalf of, well, not on behalf, I'm no longer that young, but but I wanted to speak on the experiences the youth may have encountered with drug abuse. So as I was saying earlier, leading the new norm, and I was specifically going to speak on the epidemic of drug abuse and substance abuse that affects our youth of American Samoa. And yes, I said epidemic. I know we're also facing the pandemic of COVID-19, and then we have the monkeypox coming in. We have the flu season coming up, and it's just like a whole lot of like actual sicknesses that we're going through. But then there's also the epidemic of drugs and abstinence. Drugs and substance abuse that is definitely affecting our youth of American Samoa. So what is the issue? It is no longer a secret that American Samoa has a drug problem. We see it, we hear of it, and we're definitely living through it. Every day on the front page of Samoa News, there's something that's drug related, whether it's domestic violence, sexual abuse, there's an assault, there's theft. And it's sad because these are all different levels of violence, and these are all different types of crimes, yet they all seem to have that same source. And majority of the time, it is definitely because of drugs, or there's drugs involved. When I do say drugs, I'm not just saying like, go ahead. When I'm saying drugs, I'm not just saying like, oh, it's just like ice, marijuana, narcotics with like the abuse of opioids and stuff like that. But I'm also talking about the lesser, I wouldn't know how to say it, the lesser the legal drugs, which is like tobacco and then alcohol, because those are like, we see it every day, and then they're also like bought from the store, so it's like you have access to those kind of drugs. um, Moving forward. Yes. So, like I said, when I say drugs, I'm talking about alcohol, I'm talking about tobacco, I'm talking about methamphetamine, which is ice, and then there's also marijuana. There's other drugs, but I feel like these were the top 4 that I've experienced while teaching at Fasao Marist. As an English teacher, I would allow my students to do a lot of journal writings. I know John can agree to that, because I felt like that was probably the best way for me to learn from my students, and to like at least see who they were in and out of the classroom. So the experience there, it was definitely humbling, and it was definitely very educating on the fact that these 17-year-olds, 16-year-olds, 15, 14-year-olds are going through so much that you don't expect people in their age to go through. So it was very like, wow. I felt helpless at moments, because these were kids that I deal with 8 hours a day from Monday to Friday, and I felt like I couldn't do much to help them in ways that they needed to be helped. So some of the factors that I've noticed from teaching in Fasao, and it's not just Fasao Marist that I'm talking about, it was being a teacher gave me the access to the youth, and I was able to pick up on these factors. If you could go ahead and click for me. Definitely peer pressure. Peer pressure was definitely there. And then the activeness of people on social media in our society, curiosity and wanting to explore, self-medication and escape. And then there was also the emphasis on the lack of involvement from family, or the history of family being involved with addiction. So when I say peer pressure, it was very common for you to be like, you hang out with a certain group of friends, so you have to like, you want to be one of the cool kids, you want to be popular, so you see the kids like, okay, they're smoking, they're drinking, and you're like, all right, if they're doing it, then I should do it too. And that also goes into social media. We know like there's so many social media platforms out there nowadays. There's like TikTok, there's Facebook, there's Instagram, there's Twitter, there's like so much out there. And our youth today, they're very prone to electronics and technology, so they're always on there, and they're like these little cameras, right? I would compare the youth to cameras. So they're kind of like the monkey see, monkey do kind of generation. So they feel like whatever they see on social media and it's trending, they want to do it in reality. And whatever they see in society, which, as I said, it's no secret that American Samoa has a drug problem. Like just driving down my street, you would easily detect who's like not in their right state of mind with what they're doing on the road. They're like talking to themselves. They're like dancing on the road. You see all these crazy things, and they're automatically, you're like, okay, dang, this person is on it. You don't know what it is. It could be inhalants, because people they inhale gasolines, like markers. I know growing up, it's so common. It's like these little stuff that we do that we don't have no idea. It's actually like pouring into these like negative vices and stuff. And then another common factor that I noticed being exposed to the youth was their curiosity. And I know there's a saying that goes, the curiosity killed the cat, which no pun intended, but it makes sense, the reason why they would say that, because sometimes we're so curious about certain things that we tend to like not think straight, because we're like, okay, I just want to do it. I want to get into it. I want to know how it is, without really evaluating the consequences or what you're walking yourself into. And the other one would be the self-medication or escape. And I say this because in a lot of the journals that I read, it was like they were going through so much trouble, like whether it was relationship wise with their boyfriends and girlfriends, relationship wise with like their friends, relationship wise with like people at their church, your cousins, your siblings, and then your parents. And you're just like, you would expect people to go home because that would be their sense of security. But from my experience, it was like home was the place they wanted to escape. And me hearing that or reading that, it hurt me because I'm like, man, if you can't feel safe in your own home, where else are you going to feel safe at? And that was one of the factors that led these kids to like participate in drug use, whether it was alcohol, whether it was smoking, whether it was hardcore drugs with the ice and stuff like that. And it was just mind blowing. And then it was even sad because they felt like they couldn't have the support from their family. Most of them, they had to be adults at such a young age because either like their parents weren't really focused on them, their parents had their own problems going on, and it was like these kids, these like 17-year-olds, these 16-year-olds were left to like fight life or fight the world with no one to like guide them, to nurture them, to lead them. So again, I can't help but keep saying it was definitely a mind-blowing realization, and it hit me so hard that these kids at a young age were going through so much that I wouldn't even imagine my own nieces and nephews going through. But it's reality. It's out there, and we have to acknowledge that to address the problem. Because if we keep saying like, oh, they're 16, they can't be going through all that. But like, it's that mentality that keeps us from being able to help these kids. Or the more we deny the facts that are given to us, the harder it is for us to help. This is just a topic I'm so passionate about when it comes to the youth. So how is the youth affected? So the youth is definitely affected with like mental problems. And I say mental problems because you notice the personality disorders, you notice the change in behavior, you notice depression. And the thing that really hurt, that's really baffling, is suicide. And it's difficult because when you think of suicide, that's like one of the it should be a high priority to like ding, 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 you notice it, so you should do it. But it's like suicide is one of the silent killers, just like diabetes. On our island, there's such a high rate of diabetes, and we know it as a silent killer. But I also believe depression leading into suicidal thoughts, attempted suicide, and the actual suicide, it's another silent killer, because these are some of the illnesses that we can't really detect, because it's so common. Like from my experience of people that have committed suicide the past couple of years, and we've noticed there was like a year we were just like back to back, like literally back to back suicides. And it was always the people that was determined to be the happy ones. It was always determined to be the ones that were the clowns, the jokester of the group. And I believe that and then I noticed that these should be something that we should acknowledge. It's always the ones that are always smiling, that act like there's nothing wrong in the world. Those are people that we really need to look out for, because they're so good at hiding how they feel. And I just wish there was more signs that we can detect it. But unfortunately, with mental problems and personality disorders, depression, suicidal thoughts, attempted suicide, and suicide, I put those in 3 different ones, because sometimes it's very common. You would think of suicide, but you would never do it. I know some people say like, oh, once you think of suicide, you're going to do it. I disagree. I definitely disagree. You can think about it, but not attempt it. But then there's also like people who don't even think about it, but they just automatically attempt it. And then there's suicide itself, where they become successful, if that's how you put it. I know it's a very touchy subject. It's touchy to me too. Being, like I said, being exposed to the youth and being a teacher, it really puts you in a different mindset and a perspective, and how like the youth processes situations, whether it's pain, and they process things differently from my generation growing up. We were very hardcore, like, oh, like these little stuff, like, who cares, or like that don't phase me. But then like the generation nowadays, it's like they're very sensitive, is how I would put it. They're very sensitive, and they're very babied. So they're like just the smallest thing, and they're already like, oh, this is it, I'm down, I have nothing else to live for, there's no purpose. But all of that leads them into finding that escape I was talking about in my previous slide. So this escape, or this self-medication, leads them to like cigarettes, alcohol. At the very maximum, it would be like hardcore drugs with the ice and marijuana and whatever else that they may have access to. So that is definitely some of the ways that I've noticed about the youth being affected by it. And I know I'm not the only one who sees it, and I'm not the only one who hears it. And like I said, we're definitely living through it. The negative impacts on the drug abuse or the substance abuse on the youth today is that it definitely puts a strain on their relationships, whether it's with family and friends. And I would also say church, because you see these kids, they stop going to church because they feel like, if God can't help me, my family can't help me. So what's the point, you know? And then there's also the negative impact of being involved in crimes. And I've witnessed that. We see like the crime rates going up, and it's always the youth, the age group of youth from like 25 to like 16, 15. And you see these babies, they're babies, and you see them out there like doing all these crazy stuff with like the burglary, the theft. There's so many break-ins in American Samoa as of late. And the leading factor is always because of like drugs. And it's just like, wow. And then you also have like the youth rate going up with arrests, and it's just like, when is it going to end? When is it going to stop? Like, how are we going to approach this? And then another impact is your personal health. You're killing yourself by participating in these activities. You're like, there's going to be like mentally, you're going to be mentally affected. You're going to be physically affected. You're going to be emotionally affected. Mentally is like, you're going to lack the judgment. You're not going to have the good judgment to like make decisions wisely. And you're going to have like memory loss and stuff like that. And then physically, you see the effect that it has on people on our island. The people that were always like chunky and chubby, like very well fitted, and you can see meat on their bones. You see them like a couple months later, they're like just skin and bones, like nothing else there. And it's also affecting them emotionally, because you no longer have that that connection, or that emotion connection with like people that you love. You know, you no longer care about the people that you love, because now all you're worried about is, what do I need to sell, and how do I get this next fix? Because you're coming down and you're just like, I can't deal with reality, so I need to go. I need to find another vice. And I feel like those were the main impacts that I've noticed. It was definitely putting a strain on the relationship with family and friends, your church groups, the involvement in crime, the arrest, and then also your personal health. And then, of course, what can we do? I did come up with, well, I didn't come up with it, it's not original, but the first thing that I thought of that helped me help the students or help the youth that I did encounter was listening. You have to listen. You have to listen in order to understand. You have to listen in order for you to learn what's going on in their minds, what is going on in their lives, what contributed to leading them to doing what they are doing now. And then from learning about it, you can also use that to your advantage and help inspire them in a different way. Inspire them in like finding a different vice. If your vice is drinking, I would recommend doing something else. I think for me, my biggest inspiration for my students or for my kids, or for any youth that I've encountered was inspiring them to write. If you feel like you can't trust anybody or you don't have the connection with anyone to like tell them how you feel, I inspire them to write. And that's why I was always big on journals. I was like, every day it was like a journal. And I wanted them in that way. If they can't talk to me directly because they feel like, oh, I don't want to get judged, I don't want to be punished, I just wanted them to talk to me about it. So I always have them write journals, and that was my way of inspiration, because I feel like if they were able to put their thoughts into words on paper, that could be a way for them to reread how they thought of themselves or how they see their lives and where they see themselves going. And then S is for seeking help. And this could be like seeking that right person, seeking that right outlet, seeking that right outlet to let all these emotions or all these negativity in you and all the negative experience that you've had in life, and putting it into good use. T is for telling. Either you can tell me, tell your sibling, tell your cousin, tell someone that you feel like is actually going to hear you out, instead of just being like, oh, really? And just nonchalant, like pretending to be there, but it's someone that you need to tell that's actually you're not only pouring into them, but they're also gonna be able to pour back into you. So it's not like you're gonna pour into them, leave you, and then they leave you high and dry, or they leave you empty because you've poured so much into them and they can't do the same to you. So and then the other thing is educating yourself on what drugs can do to you, educating the impacts that it does, educating on the causes and effects, and then also just educating yourself in general. If you pour yourself more into your studies or pour yourself into more your passions, you wouldn't have time to think of anything that's going wrong in your life. And education goes back to like knowledge is power. You can do so much when you have so much knowledge. And it doesn't necessarily mean that, oh, you have to pursue higher education. You have to go after your AA, get your BA, get your MA, get your PhD. It's more than that. You know, you have to educate yourself streetwise too, huh? You have to be smart, because you can be book smart, but not street smart. But sometimes you need both, or at least a balance of either one. So at least, or if you're lacking in book smart, at least be good in street smart. And and vice versa, you know what I mean? So educating yourself, and educating others on how to help you. You know, people can't help you if you can't help them help you. You know what I mean? So in order for them to help you, you have to help them understand you. You have to educate them on how you feel, educate them on what triggers you, educate them on what you don't like and what you like. And it's like a balance. It's like meet me halfway. It's a two-way street. So, and then N is for notice. Notice the signs. Notice when someone is not acting their usual self. Notice when someone is pretending that they're okay. Notice all these little signs. These little signs are gonna help you dictate or determine whether or not this person needs help. You know. So listen. That's my share for tonight. For today is what can we do? Is listen. Learn, inspire, seek, tell, educate, and notice. Where do we start? I would definitely say we would definitely have to start at home. Our first classroom growing up is our home. The four walls that we're meant to be safe in is educating with your parents, your your siblings, because these are the people that are gonna go through because so when the minute you go through trouble, your family are the ones that are gonna be there. But it's also hard because as previous speaker have emphasized on, there's so many taboos that we can't openly discuss with our families. And I feel like that needs to go. There shouldn't be a subject at home that has to be taboo, and let alone in our home, but in our culture as well. Because if we don't get rid of those taboos, this problem that we're facing with sexual abuse, the shame on the LGBTQ, the drug abuse on the youth, none of these problems are going to change or are going to end if we don't stop those taboos from happening. And it starts with our families, because if our culture can't change it, at least we have to start small. It doesn't matter how small, but we have to start somewhere. And it starts with removing these taboos, even with churches. So family, friends, and churches, those are all these are the main groups where you have these taboos on what you should be openly talk about, because if you can't talk about it, how are you going to get the help that you need? I think there's also been a helpline during that year where we've had numerous suicide from the youth. We had a helpline, and I encourage those. It's very important, because at least you're talking to someone, but you don't know who it is, and they can't judge you because they don't know who you are, right? And I think that's another thing, because I think that's why it's so easy for us, run into someone, I don't know if it's a bus or something, I can't say train or stuff like that because we don't have trains down here, unfortunately. But on the buses, or when I would go to the hospital, I would sit there and there's someone talking to me, and I'm just okay. And then out of nowhere, I'm having a conversation that I would normally not have with my family members, because they don't judge me or they don't know my story. All they know is what I'm going through. And it's so easy for us to communicate that way because there's no history there, right? So I feel like that's another reason why helplines are so helpful, because you don't know them, they don't know you. All they know is the problem, and that problem is usually universal. So it's good to have that, and I think it's also important that we have a rehabilitation center. And I feel like our government and our island is definitely moving slow to approach that rehab, because there has been so many talks throughout the past years. There was even funds that were coming in for rehabilitation centers, but it's 2022 and I still don't see a rehabilitation center. And then they wonder why there's repeating offenses with drug-related crimes, right? Because these people are just committing a crime, they go to jail for a certain amount of time, they come back out. It's the same thing. They still have access to this thing. They still have they were never really rehabilitated. They didn't get the treatment that they needed. And going to prison is more of a punishment instead of a treatment, It's just you're just going to be punished, and then you go back out and you do it. But if you have a rehabilitation center where you get the treatment that you actually need, we can do better. And it also goes into support group meetings. I don't know if there was an AA meeting. Usually it's for people with alcohol addiction, and they get together into these groups, and you get to speak on your problem, and you have a group of people that understand you, because they too are fighting the same battles. And I feel like if we incorporated those in our island and stuff like that, it could be a very life-changing moment for our youth and for anybody that's going through these abuses. I know for programs in place, I always refer American Samoa Against Domestic and Sexual Violence to everybody that I encounter. I'm if you guys are going through some stuff, whether it's family related, relationship wise, I would visit Alliance. Alliance is always there for you, more than Blue Sky is. I also know that the American Samoan Criminal Justice Planning Agency is there, and hopefully that they do do what they need to do and help implement the a rehabilitation center for American Samoa. I know when our former governor, Lolo Molinga, he also had the American Samoa Drug Control Commission in place when he was in office. And then just about 2 months ago, Honorable Limanu also put out the American Samoa Comprehensive, sorry, that was definitely a typo, Substance Abuse Council. So hopefully with all these in place and starting from our homes and our churches and stuff like that, moving into the government and our culture as a whole, we could be able to make some changes happen. If not for us, for the youth. Because if there's anything we need to be, if there's anyone that's capable of changing things for us, it'll be with the youth. So it's important. Yeah. And my selected proverb for today was, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, you got to go together. So thank you so much for my time. Thank you, Alliance. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much to all. Your conversation was so strong, and I believe that there is so much that you could have. There's like a lot of things that we could do together as well. There's so much passion and so much love in your conversation, and I absolutely felt every word that you were speaking on. And thank you so much for sharing that with us, especially about like the different individuals and the different backgrounds that these kids come from. It's crazy to think that we're living in it. Like, we're going through this whether we like it or not, and it's coming at us. And so with LISTEN, like your acronym is such a great example for us to use and follow, because that way we have like at least somewhere to start, somewhere we can start and then make our way to bigger moves. And I totally agree with you on that about the rehab, where we need to have one here, because if you implement so much so much negativity after whatever, and it keeps going, it's gonna be hard for those to understand whether they're doing things because they want to do it to get out of reality, or to do it because it's just all they've known, you know? Yeah. So I appreciate you very much for sharing that information with us and for having such an amazing slide. So much information that I think everyone should be able, and there's some things that resonate with each and every one of us. So thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Toa, or do they have any comments? You guys can use the chat box as well. I believe I had a question.
Okay, I was just about to say, I think I see a question.
Yeah, I wanted to know, like, as someone who sees the youth, what's the hardest thing to come to terms with in regards to like seeing these individuals when you teach them or see them in school, and then by the time they grow up and they're an adult, like you see them around, like in a different headspace. Like, how does one deal with that?
Thanks for the question. That was definitely a good question. I think that's one of my biggest fears in life, is seeing these pupils that I spent so much time pouring life into and education into, unfortunately not making it in life. But, you know, but I still have, I still believe in them. You know, I still believe that there's still time to like turn their lives around and make things right. I've had an experience with a few of my former students who like ended up in the jail system and stuff like that. And during that whole time, I still didn't what is it? I didn't forget about them, you know, like, because it's so common, like you're so many people are only there for you during the good times. When it becomes a bad time, they're just like keeping their distance. But not for me. I feel like my connection or my bond was stronger than ever when it came to the fact that the student was in jail and stuff like that. And I was there. I supported him. I wrote him letters. I showed love to the parents, and I was just making sure to let him know that regardless of what happened and regardless of what mistakes that he did, he still has a support system. I wanted to make sure that he knew that regardless of whatever may have happened, I was still here and I was still gonna listen. And he's out. He's doing good. He has a job. He's working, and not just like it makes me happy that he used this negative experience to mold him into a better character, if that makes sense. So it was hard. It was hard seeing him, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I failed. I failed him, but no, I'm just proud because the trial and the triumph, the trial and the tragedy that he went through, he was able to come back stronger, and that's more than I can ever ask for.
Just like hearing you talk about it too is you were there for that person. You were their rock. You were someone who motivated them to be their better self. And so I think we need a lot more people with that kind of headspace, because it's like we see them, but then we don't know if they really want the help or not. But then you taking that first step and showing that it just takes one step to initiate that whole process of being better, being them better selves. So I think that is I think that's a really great impact that you've made on that person as well.
Thank you.
I think there's another question. What support do we need to help these students who are going through this? Like, I'm guessing that if there are any other ways that we can help, not only students, but like youth who are unfortunately going through these. Is there anything else that we could do within our families or within our friend groups?
It's definitely removing the taboos. We have to have these conversations. It's addressing the problem. It's identifying that we do have a problem, because I think that's the biggest thing. We're so in denial. Like people, like even our parents, they refuse to believe it. And even when you say suicide, and they're like, "Oh, that's such a white thing, or that's such an American thing. It doesn't happen here." But unfortunately, it has happened. It's been happening, and it's still happening. Yet we refuse to acknowledge it. I think that's where it needs to start. We need to offer the support of saying it's a problem and we should fix it. I think that's where it should start. And going back to what I was saying is listening. You have to listen. And you're not just listening just to have the conversation. You're listening so you can learn from it. Because there's a difference between you can sit with someone, have a whole conversation, and they're not responding to you because they're like, okay, yeah, it's whatever. You have to talk, good talk, And then there's also someone that you have a conversation with, and you're learning from them as much as they're learning from you. And support, it just goes a long way. I'm not just saying like support is just you being there materialistically buying them things, giving them this, because you don't want to confuse support with enabling. You don't want to confuse the two, because some people are like, okay, well, if I support him, I'll just let him have a drink or two or give him a pack of cigarettes. There's a difference. There is a difference between supporting and enabling, and you need to know there's a fine line between the two before you proceed to help someone, and it takes a lot. It takes a lot of patience. It takes a lot of dedication, because there's going to be highs and lows, and when it gets low, it's going to be low, and you just have to brace yourself for that kind of impact. Like I said, with witnessing one of my students going into the system, I was like, wow, like it really broke me. It really broke me to the point where I was like, I don't think I can face these kids anymore, because if I failed one, imagine how many more I'm going to fail. And I don't want to have that kind of responsibility on my hands. But, I had to mentally knock myself out of that mentality and be like, you need to approach it in another way. It's always all about approach too. You have to break the negative thinking, break the cycles, break negative impacts. That would stop you from helping these people that need the help that they need.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you on that. And then just because I know there's this question too, as that schools are with Dr. Yanetta, she mentioned that some schools don't allow sex education, and so it's kind of hard for individuals and youth to actually understand what's going on with them. So, do you think that schools should also implement some kind of program? So, you know, initiating that conversation within the schools. Do you think that should be a thing?
Yes, because it goes back with like sex education. I remember when I was in high school, they were trying to incorporate sex education, but so many parents were against it. They're like, no, once they know about it, they're gonna do it. But I beg to differ. I say because like, it goes with curiosity. Like the less you know, for youth as me too, growing up, the less I knew about something, the more I wanted to go do it. Like I wanted to, like, okay, I want to go see what the hype is about. Since it's so restricted and it's so like, oh, you can't do this, it just makes a youth like want to go do it. So I feel like again, it goes back to knowledge. Knowing stuff and educating yourself on certain situations, and because knowledge is power. So once you know the consequences of stuff, you're most likely like, okay, I can't do it. Or also, at least you'll know your limits by then, huh? You know what you can do and what you should do. Or like going back to like drinking, I know the drinking age is 21 and the smoking age is 18. So it's like these are both like drugs, but yet they have different age limits. So I feel like that's another thing. It's like if you knew the effects it had on you, you would be able to limit yourself in approaching these stuff. So if you knew that you can't handle your drink, you'll probably move up your age limits. Like, okay, I'll probably not drink until like 25 or 28. And then if like smoking is not for you, be like, okay, maybe like once a day kind of thing. So I feel like if we were to address these situations, both just like sex education should be in school, incorporating a drug class to like vice and narcotics in the system, it'll definitely be a learning experience and a life-changing one too. So that way these kids will be able to learn it in the classroom instead of going out onto the streets and trying it out for themselves. So
of course, that's what someone else said, that we need to break that cycle of like not communicating that with the students. And so I think you have at least two more questions.
Okay.
So one is, how can we bring awareness to these taboo subjects and to our community? So I'm guessing like in our villages, like how can we do that with our churches, Uncle Vo?
I think that's where it should start. I think the youth needs to start speaking up on it during youth meetings, because I've noticed in a lot of churches, or at least the ones that I go to, it's always like it's for the youth, yet the people that are in charge of like implementing the program, it's the old folks. And I'm just looking at them like, how do you know what we want? How do you know what we need if you guys can't even allow us the space or the freedom to proceed as we wish? Because we would like give out our ideas and they're like, oh no, but I'm like, well, that's how you can approach the youth, is approaching them in a youth mindset. You can't tell the youth what to do and like not listen, you can't ask the youth what they want, and then when they tell you what they want, you don't listen. You're like, no, that's too much. No, that's a lot. I think it has to start from us, because if they can't change it, we have to change it. And I don't want it to be like, because very Samoan, be like, okay, overfeel popoko, kiki and stuff like that. But really, it's like, just hear me out. Just listen to me. Or maybe you just have to find a way to approach it, because our old folks are very stubborn. They're very old school. They're so rooted in what our culture used to be, instead of like
what it needs to be.
What it needs to be, yes. Because the days are different now.
Sorry.
Yeah, because it's so the times are different now. Things are so much simpler back then, but now it's like the world is changing. So are we. And I'm not necessarily saying change the culture. I'm just saying there should be some stuff that we need to incorporate to better understand, or to better ourselves and our people moving forward.
And like you mentioned, having people listen to understand and learn instead of listening just to listen, just to like nonchalantly pass your idea over and like not even think about it. So I think things like that needs to be addressed. But on behalf of us here at Alliance, thank you so much for speaking on that and for providing so much of a different point of perspective, because I think we need that.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you again, Alliance. I appreciate you guys for always reaching out to me. I'm pretty sure some of you guys are probably tired of me and appearing in so many Alliance talk, but you know, it's such a good platform, and we need to work together, and you guys are doing a pretty good job in causing this awareness in our community. So fatai lava malo lava ya teo tau from ni atile tui to ngadwenga when you foi le asos faso fua.
Bye. Faso fua. Alrighty, so we will actually be going, or we would like to apologize for the absence of Dr. Jean Anderson. Due to unforeseen circumstances, she will not be able to attend nor speak at this event. So we wanted to go into a quick 5-minute break, because I know that because of there's so much conversation going on, there's so much great ideas and thoughts and opinions, we would want you to at least take a break, water break, snack break, whatever you feel like doing. But please turn off your cameras, mute your microphones, come back later in 5 minutes, and also check out some of these PSAs that we have. So we'll all see you in 5 minutes.
Talofa America Samoa, the COVID vaccines are here. Having a vaccine available is a really important step in ending the pandemic, and we have 2 types of vaccines here now, but they won't do any good stuck in a freezer. I know some people are worried that these new vaccines might need more study, but the data has shown that they're both safe and effective. Millions of healthcare workers have already gotten their 2 doses. You also may have heard about people feeling a bit sick after getting their COVID vaccine, but please don't let that deter you. The vaccine is designed to train your immune system to fight off COVID. Side effects don't last that long, and there's no virus in the vaccine and no preservatives to worry about either. Soon, it's going to be your turn. So get your questions answered now and be ready to line up as soon as you're able. We don't want you to miss out on your shot.
Teen dating violence. Teen dating violence is the physical or sexual abuse within a dating relationship. This girl was abused by her partner. She was hurt physically and helpless. There's no one she could turn to. She was all alone. She didn't have the confidence to speak up for herself. So please, speak up and take a stand. Stop teen dating violence and break the silence. With any questions, please call American Alliance 699-0272 and Blue Sky 699-2759. Thank you for watching.
we dive into summer, consider how COVID-19 is spreading in your community when choosing activities. Outdoor activities and visits are safer than those indoors, but fully vaccinated people can participate in most indoor activities without much risk. If you are not yet vaccinated, you should continue to practice prevention strategies such as wearing a well-fitted mask, practicing physical distancing, avoiding crowds, and washing your hands. For more than a year, many people have focused on staying safe from COVID-19. While this continues to be important, returning to regular activities when you are fully vaccinated, such as travel, events, and other social gatherings, can provide hope for days ahead. In addition, taking simple actions such as deep breathing, physical activity, healthy eating, practicing good sleep habits, and safely connecting with family, friends, and neighbors can improve your well-being.
I arm myself against COVID-19 for my community. Arm yourself against COVID-19 and get vaccinated today.
The Center for Disease Control, or CDC, is asking Americans to wear masks to prevent the spread of COVID-19. It's important to remember for people who are victims of sexual assault that masks and face coverings can trigger anxiety and fear. Wearing a face covering can trigger memories of abuse, such as the feeling of having a hand covering your mouth or your face being pushed into a pillow. Wearing a mask can make people feel claustrophobic and cause them to lose control of their breathing. Victims, also known as survivors, have reported that not being able to see the faces of those around them is intimidating and makes them worried. Here are possible solutions. 1. Practice wearing your face covering at home. Take the time to get used to how it feels on your face. 2. Find the right face covering, one that is comfortable and doesn't irritate you. 3. Get creative. Maybe wearing a scarf or a handkerchief is less restrictive. 4. Make it smell good. Use a scent that makes you feel relaxed, like lavender. 5. Ask your loved ones for support. Take walks with someone you love to ease into wearing a mask in public. They can also help you find the right covering. We hope that victims and survivors are able to wear a mask safely, but if wearing a face covering causes severe distress, be confident in your decision to not wear one. No survivor should feel shamed for not being able to wear a mask. Stand with survivors in the days ahead. Please show your support for survivors by treating anyone who is not wearing a mask with compassion and dignity.
Let me pull out my pistol. Hold up. Oh, dude, I gotta go.
Where you gotta go?
I gotta go bingo.
Why I gotta go bingo?
Because there's gonna be a lot of girls.
No way.
But you got any pickup lines I could use?
Oh, I got a ton. Try this one. Hey girl, you wanna be the bunny to my popo?
No.
Man. Oh, this one always works. Hey girl, you so OGL.
What's OGL?
Oh, ngala.
Oh, nah. I need something that could actually work.
Man, those always work. If they didn't, what would you even do?
I'll be like, hey girl, you so
Nah, man, that ain't cool, dog. It might be okay to pick up on a girl, but it's never okay to hit a girl. It's on us to stop domestic violence.
1 in 3 girls in the United States is a victim of physical, emotional, or verbal abuse.
81% of parents believe teen dating violence is not an issue.
All genders, female, males, and transgender can be a victim too.
If you notice any sign of an unhealthy relationship, stop and do something.
Stop teen dating violence.
Teen dating violence. Teen dating violence is the physical or sexual abuse within a dating relationship. This girl was abused by her partner. She was hurt physically and helpless. There is no one she could turn to. She was all alone. She didn't have the confidence to speak up for herself. So please, speak up and take a stand. Stop teen dating violence and break the silence. With any questions, please call American Alliance 699-0272 and Blue Sky 699-2759. Thank you for watching.
As you dive into summer, consider how COVID-19 is spreading in your community when choosing activities. Outdoor activities and visits are safer than those indoors, but fully vaccinated people can participate in most indoor activities without much risk. If you are not yet vaccinated, you should continue to practice prevention strategies such as wearing a well-fitted mask, practicing physical distancing, avoiding crowds, and washing your hands. For more than a year, many people have focused on staying safe from COVID-19. While this continues to be important, returning to regular activities when you are fully vaccinated, such as travel, events, and other social gatherings, can provide hope for days ahead. In addition, taking simple actions such as deep breathing, physical activity, healthy eating, practicing good sleep habits, and safely connecting with family, friends, and neighbors can improve your well-being.
Alrighty. Welcome back, everyone, and great to see you all ready for these conversations. So I kindly ask that you all turn on your cameras, and now we're gonna go into our breakout session. So, and hear what you have to say about the topics that were discussed. And this is an open space, so please don't judge, and feel free to share opinions, ideas that might have piqued your interest. So in every breakout room, there will be at least two summer interns, and you'll have the opportunity to start the discussion, and there will be a tab that will pop up on your screen, and you can just click join. And then at the end of our discussion time, we will all return back to the main room, and each group will be able to report back on the group's discussion. So I believe that IT will be sending out our breakout room request. A great dialogue and enjoyed the conversations. Wow. From here, the facilitators or participants, if wanting to, will be able to share their thoughts and opinions during your guys' conversation that you had. You can join, or you can share on the chat box, or you can share your opinions verbally. But if group one wants to start,
You did a good job. It was pretty good. We shared on so before we came to the room, we were just sharing about how does our cultural view affect us in a negative way. So we basically talked about how as growing up, how our future, how like the elders in the families were they how they use the guilt card, how they use the and it as we grow older and older and we move on, well, it'll end up letting us use it against the younger generations, right? If anyone from Group One wants to elaborate more on it.
Yeah, let me. I'll add with to what John was saying. First of all, I just want to. I just want to. Thank you guys for this discussion. Right, and then also with John, you can totally see that you're taking in all this information. One of the things that we talked about is how important it is for us to try to understand. Kind of if we're trying to bridge that gap is one on our end, on the youth end, is try to understand our parents and understand the our culture and why certain things are done, and then we can. It's easier for us to try to help them to understand on our perspective or the youth's perspective on how maybe some of those things that were done in the past, how it kind of interferes or clashes with with your current life and the challenges that you're facing, and then how sometimes for parents, if they use certain things to try to motivate us, but sometimes they don't realize the impact it has, right? Like what John had mentioned, if they use the guilt trip or they use certain things or on threaten us or things like that, to get us to do something, that the more that they understand how that impacts us or the youth, and have more information, then maybe that might help them to change kind of the things that they do. I think those are some of the stuff that we had discussed.
Thank you so much for sharing. And I think like when you mentioned that a lot of the things you gotta bridge that gap, it's really it's really hard with this as well because sometimes the youth are not very involved or engaged with their own youth, so it's kind of difficult for them to understand like this same information that they're getting or looking for this information that is being given. But I don't think a lot of people know about that, especially for those who are on the marginal areas, those who aren't very aware or very tech savvy, or those who just simply don't see a problem, or those who are like in denial as well. It's kind of hard to just address this kind of stuff with them. But I think with what you guys mentioned about having the conversation or just talking about it or bringing it up, speaking to people, I think that's a great way to start. And with the guilt trip kind of thing, I also see it personally, but it's difficult because you know that you want to do it, but then it's hard because they're making you feel bad and stuff like that. But if the youth had more information about this, I feel like a lot of people would benefit from this as well. Like having this conversation right now, this is very beneficial for like almost all people on this call. And so I appreciate Group 1 for sharing. Group 2, would you like to share, Leilangi, or anyone from our group about any of the questions? Yes.
All right, sorry, Vina. Before we go on ahead and share it, but just to kind of go back to that topic about bridging that gap, I think one important thing that was shared in our conversation was it was a response to question number 1, which was how can we move towards normalizing conversations on LGBTQ, substance abuse, teenage pregnancy, and emotional and economic abuse. And I think going off that topic with bridging that gap is important. And as Robert and Twilight, they were explaining, where it's establishing a relationship and commonality with people is really important in finding common ground to help start those conversations. And I think with us, it's learning to bridge that gap with the generations before us. And, our generation now is, Jennifer mentioned in our discussion as well, where it's, our generations change, generation after generation, where it's my mom is different, my grandma is different, and they have, what they have learned from their generations, and using what they have learned from their generations and mixing it with ours is important in bridging that gap, and learning to find that relationship with the older generations is important in starting these changes. And I just wanted to add that in, and thank you guys for letting me share.
If anyone else would like to add, of course, the floor is yours. I'm sorry if I cut off anybody earlier.
I just want to just put this little blurb in, and like what Cammie's saying, I think one of the things that I also want to leave with you all as you are young and as you get a little bit older and older, there's youth behind you. So these comments that you're saying now, you have because you're much more aware of it and you're enlightened. Now you have that responsibility to continue to bridge the gap and remember what it was like for you all as you're coming, because you're going to have much more tech savvy tech. These people are going to be even more informational than you are, and reminding yourself what it was like and how do you bridge the gap with them. So it's not just us that are old already, but it's reminding that you'll be there too. And so the healthy thing is to how do we continue to have these conversations in a healthy way that is respectful, that is safe, that allows us to move forward, move our community work forward, and not escalate the violence that we have in generations that, continuing this. But that was just it. Thank you.
And also just to add on, it's important to understand that you want to have these discussions before you have it with your parents, right? That's the whole reason why we're trying to learn and practice sharing your thoughts and your feelings, and you want to do that in an environment that is receptive to that, right? So it's not just after this, okay, now you go and talk to it's your parents. If you understand that your parents are not, or if there are people who are not receptive, you want to make sure, because even in our discussions, you can tell that there's still people who's trying to process this information, right? And then when they try to share, they still don't have the words. But the more we engage in this discussion, the more you will develop that skill and that strength and that confidence, so that when you do need to talk to your parents about certain things, you have that developed. So that's something that's to make sure, we're not saying just go tonight and go talk to your parents about, and then also just, not, making sure to have just superficial conversations with your parents before you bring out the big guns, like I have a boyfriend and we're gonna, like those kind of discussions. You want to learn to develop, a certain type of relationship with parents, because our parents have to learn how to make adjustments as well too, right? They're used to what they're used to, and in any relationship, we have to develop, and yeah.
Yeah, I think it's important to keep in mind that we're all learning. Even our parents, they don't know everything, and that helps strengthen that gap between us. Another thing that I would like to share with from our group was answering question number 4, which was what wellness looks like to us and what can wellness look like in our culture. And although we didn't really answer it, but what wellness looks like to us, Robert brought up a good point of self-awareness. The more aware we are of ourselves in each domain, spiritually, emotionally, mentally, the better we can address it. And understanding our culture and principles can help enable us to change these methods and to help lead us towards wellness. So thank you for sharing that, Robert. I just wanted to echo that back to the big group.
Anyone else want to share anything? All right, so group 2, which is Leilani and I's group. There was a lot of conversations, but I'll give it to Leilani to share the ones that she found very important to this discussion.
So, one of the questions that I wanted to share what we gathered was the third question, which is how our cultural view affects us in a negative way. So the main point of all the information we got was it isn't the culture, but it's how the person was raised or how the person views the culture. For example, how in the olden days we used the new, and now people use the bottle of wine or something to substitute for the new. So the item is changing, but the meaning is still the same. And it's like the Bible. Everyone has their own translation, the actions and practices, but it's the same.
think another thing that was very insightful in our conversation was that a lot of people um, take things and understand things differently. Not all of us have the same mindset, nor do we have the same opinions, same thoughts, and same statements. So, understanding that and also understanding that our culture are two different things. Not just like, oh, because of so and so, that is why I am the ethnicity that I am. But in terms of like being able to know, like, understand the culture first and then focus more on the person afterwards. But I think, Kiso, if you would like to share more on what you mentioned during our discussion, that would be great.
Thank you, Fina, for title lava. What I had mentioned in our group discussion was that this cultural side of me just can't stop, popping up. It's just I'm just rooted in our culture, and I strongly believe that our culture doesn't have a negative impact on our Samoan community. It's the way we practice the culture that's creating the problem that we're facing right now. Olanganu Samoa, there's no such thing as a negative part of the culture. There's no part like that in the Samoan culture. Ele se tu lang se se Olanganu Samoa. Itono soy fuangal tangata. And that's why I strongly believe that we must understand our culture first and be knowledgeable of our culture in order to move forward with continuing these conversations and leading the new norm. For example, bridging that gap, we need to integrate the culture in that. For example, when you talk to your parents, part of the culture is that you have to be respectful and be polite. Some youth members right now, they don't even consider that part of the conversation. They don't even respect their parents. They're not even polite. And so what do you expect in return as far as the reaction? Yeah, it is for the reaction, it is respect, must be polite. So that's the culture that we have to educate our people about. When our people understand our culture, they will definitely know their place in society. And I think that our culture is the solution to domestic violence and sexual assault. Aside from all the other government services that that we have available here in American Samoa, because the fact of the matter is that the Samoan culture is not teaching us to go and fasio ko olua. Elio from Samoan culture, alwe fasilo ko olua sa nga. No. Ole oi mata ol tama olona tua fine. And so when you understand that concept of our culture, I don't think you would do such an action. I don't think you would beat up your wife, or vice versa. When we understand our culture, I tell you, we will see the decrease in the amount of sexual assault cases, domestic violence cases. So I just wanted to add that on, Fina. And it's just me, anyone that blames the culture for all of this, that's a debate right there. Yeah. So but thank you, Fina. I appreciate the opportunity.
Of course. I think another thing that we talked about during our conversation was that a lot of the conversations are very discussed. So one of them was questioning how can we promote the new norm? How can we start the conversation? And so I believe one of us, or Nerissa, who is here, she mentioned that because of the fact that we're not talking about it on a daily basis, it's harder for us to actually accept it. And so for that, it's just bringing it up into discussions and bringing it up for debate. Like if there are people that want to share it because of whatever reason, it's also good for us to start from somewhere. Something small, something simple, like a conversation between you and your friends. And I believe what Mariah is also saying as well in the chat. She mentioned that how the youth must come forward, and she agrees with that. I truly agree with that as well, because in order for us to make an impact in this community, we need to start getting involved, and we need to start moving forward and stepping into that area. So, is there anything else that anyone wants to mention from group 2?
If I can just add, I'm sorry, I should have rose my hand through the system, but I want to piggyback on what Kiso said. You have to in order to really bridge the gap, you have to know the culture. You definitely need to understand what the Fasamo stands for, and then be able to create those conversations that you can have that are safe, to say, this is, if my sister is the apple of my eye, then I know that I am not to beat her, because you don't do that to the apple of your eye, right? And brothers are there to protect. But the flip side of it, there's also this US belief system that, when you have that, and Robert can also attest to this, is that when you allow men to have that powerful belief system, that then also goes to a negative, where they then say, well, I have power over her, and if she doesn't listen to me, I can beat her. So you have to have knowledge about both of these aspects, and then to allow for the dialogue to say, well, these are safe practices. People, and having someone like Robert coming in that helps to develop communication and create good, healthier relationships, that also needs to be a part of the process for restoration. So it's a long process, but I think that we're much more familiar now with your group, your age, on how to get healthier, versus in my age group, it was a lot of alcohol, a lot of partying. So we drank a lot more, and we used that as a crutch to express ourselves, and then to communicate and to feel good about each other. But I recognize in my age group, that's not the healthy way. It really is a lot of communication, and it's understanding each other. So that's just my thought.
I also want to add one with just wanted to add to what Kiso had mentioned. Number one, I totally believe that our culture is one of, just like Kiso, I think our culture is one of the best cultures in the world, because of the principles that it's based on. I think when having this discussion, it's important for us to distinguish that there are cultural practices and cultural principles, right? And that when we maintain the cultural principles, man, our culture is the best culture in the world because of the principles that pretty much, like we mentioned in our discussion, that our culture is based on, is just one, improving our relationship with the land, right? Our relationship with the land, and eventually with God, right? Because the introduction of Christianity came later, but land and God and universe is all the same thing. So if you look at our culture, almost all the practices are based on improving or respecting the land, utilizing its resources, and our relationship with God. And the second principle was our relationship with each other, right? Everything that you do is based on improving our dava, right? Our relationship with each other. So yeah, so Kiso is right that when you understand those principles, and when you see that there's certain practices that go against those principles, that they create a discrepancy, right? I think the problem is when we don't have a lot of these discussions, a lot of times people get confused with the practices. But when we talk about culture, because culture encompasses everything, it's important when you have a discussion on culture that we distinguish those things, because even with values, like the value of respect, right? So even though we teach respect, but then the culture also defines what is respect, right? And some of the ways that we demonstrate respect have to be changed, right? Some of the practices on how we demonstrate respect, because before the practice was, you don't speak when spoken to, right? You don't have a say unless you're in a position to have. And the reason why those things were put into place, because back in the days before, you didn't, that was our education system, right? The only thing you needed to learn was from those who have come here before you, right? And that's the only information that you needed. So there was no reason for me to have a discussion with my parents on things because I didn't know anything. My parents and our ancestors have all the information. All I have to do is learn. But the thing is, we changed the environment into now, right? Right now, there's so much information that our parents and the Pasamoa is not the only way of living. But when we understand what the Pasamoa is, and we understand that there's other ways to do things, right? And we have that, that discussion, that dialogue, and our parents are open to that. But there was a reason why that thing was put into place, right? Now we're asking people to, it's not to don't share. Now we're trying to encourage people, to have a dialogue, encourage parents and children to have a dialogue. It still maintains the principle of respecting the relationship, improving our relationship, but we're changing the practices. So I think, the main thing is just, when we have a discussion of culture, it's important that we distinguish those things, because it's, a lot of times, like somebody mentioned, everybody has their own interpretation, of certain things. And the thing is, sometimes in our culture, we can develop bad habits, right? But we need to go back to what the original meaning was, like what Kiso had mentioned before, understanding the culture and what the original basis was. So.
Thank you. If I may, Ms. Fina, and so in addition to director and what Robert had mentioned, there's no part of the culture where it says, okay, you cannot speak on certain issues. I just want to make that clear, because that's one of the things that I'm hearing from the youth, is that they feel that they cannot share their perspective on certain topics such as sexual abuse, domestic violence, drug problem. No, the culture is not telling you to not share your perspective. The culture, however, is telling you to find the right time to share your perspective. Because of what? Because of Vafelwai. Because of Vafelwai. Vafelwai, when your parents okay you in your house, you don't answer right away. You don't answer back right away. Rather, you have to find the right time and the most respectful approach to talk to your parents. So the culture is not necessarily telling you cannot speak on certain issue. No, you can, but you just have to find that right timing and approach. If a forward lim tulang ina influencer solo lim tao. Thank you.
Also, and I'm gonna push back a little bit, Kiso, not to, but just on, the culture does set some protocols, right? I mean, like you said, there's a right time, right? Then the issue comes, when is the right time to bring something up if you've been abused, right? And especially if you're abused by your own parents, right? Then the question comes, when is the right time, right? So that's why there's certain things that in the culture, it emphasizes the protocol, emphasizes respect. What happens when all of those are not being honored by the very same people who are supposed to protect, and that's when, but like you said, yeah, it is against the culture, as far as the cultural principles, but there's certain practices that is protocols that are in place that makes us think otherwise.
Thank you so much, you all, for sharing. Yeah, because our time is limited and we have to finish up this program. I appreciate everyone's feedback and everyone's ideas and thoughts, because this struck a very strong conversation that I think should continue even after this event. But Thank you so much. We're actually going to do a wellness checkout. So now that we are nearing the end of our event, I hope everyone has enjoyed themselves so far. Some acknowledgement towards the project was supported by grant number awarded by the office, and since we've already reported and we'll be doing our wellness checkout, tu atule mano ya Cami, if I might to proclaim
Thank you, Fina. So I'll be leading us in a wellness checkout right now. For our wellness checkout today, I'm going to ask you guys, after hearing all this information, how are you feeling today? And you can share in the chat box or unmute yourselves to talk if you would like. Hopeful, I like that. Empowered, nice. Grateful, strong, thankful, enlightened, inspired, appreciated. Love to hear that. Not alone. You are not alone. So I'm going to ask you guys to close your eyes while I read some positive affirmations towards you to end your day. I'm going to begin right now, so if we could all close our eyes. Oh, accepted. I see you, Raya. All right. We're going to first begin with a few deep breaths. Everybody breathe in and then breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. Again, I'd like to thank everybody for being here today. And just a reminder to you all, you're all strong, you're all kind, you're accepted, you are loved, and you are not alone. I hope that throughout this conversation and throughout this presentation, you all felt well, you all felt accepted, and you felt safe here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Cami. Yeah. Ave iro leo whatawai whai mawhonga tau monimori atu leo whionga pule o le Alliance, leo whionga o Jennifer te whaono. Ia ave, ile ava noa fo i o lene aso. Ia, ma le tato whailo ina, ma le whaatasinga a wā ia e i le whamoemoe foi, i le tupulanga talavau, i le whaatala noanga, tato manulauti o le taitai, whainga masangi fou. E mori atu whaftai, e poia maulunga, ua tupu mai e, o le atunu o lo whaatasi mai i le nei tu la. Whaftai atu i le oto sapasapaya, tari sapaya foi, o lo mato whaatala ula atu. Ai mai se whaatasi mai o maupuepue maulunga lene aso. Mori atu foi, whaftai i le wala audia whapitoa, i susunga fonga whapitoa, ua whaatasi nei aso. Mori atu ai le wheu tā ua a wā o le tato o tā upu ai mai se foi tato whastasinga nei aso whamalo whaftai. Mori atu whaftai i le au waraulia ai mai se au mea mai uma na e whatasi mai tato programa a wā o tato whaatarata noanga i lunga le upenga ta whailangi. Ia, ai ai se sasi o se tautalanga i whamangana mai na auna. Tu ama fua tsara firiari i whamunia le atua i le whasausanga a le tato atunu. Whaftai. Right now, this concludes actually our event. But if anyone wants to stay back, we'll be playing some PSAs. Then after that, we can answer any questions that anyone might have. But thank you all for coming.
As you dive into summer, consider how COVID-19 is spreading in your community when choosing activities. Outdoor activities and visits are safer than those indoors, but fully vaccinated people can participate in most indoor activities without much risk. If you are not yet vaccinated, you should continue to practice prevention strategies, such as wearing a well-fitted mask, practicing physical distancing, avoiding crowds, and washing your hands. For more than a year, many people have focused on staying safe from COVID-19. While this continues to be important, returning to regular activities when you are fully vaccinated, such as travel, events, and other social gatherings, can provide hope for days ahead. In addition, taking simple actions such as deep breathing, physical activity, healthy eating, practicing good sleep habits, and safely connecting with family, friends, and neighbors can improve your well-being.
Hey, how was bingo?
It was alright.
What happened?
I was in with the girl. Everything was working fine, but then she just stopped.
Man, she didn't even want you.
No, she did.
Did she say no?
Yeah, but
man, no always means no. Watch, Dad, come here fast. Tell him.
Alright, check it, Uncle. I was in it with the girl, and we just got caught up in the moment.
Hold on a moment. No always means no, and yes does not always mean yes.
But her body language.
You need to respect that girl's choices. She's got the right to say no at any time.
What if her body language says yes?
No consent is no consent.
Maquia.
One in 3 girls in the United States is a victim of physical, emotional, or verbal abuse.
81% of parents believe teen dating violence is not an issue.
All genders, female, males, and transgender can be a victim too.
If you notice any sign of an unhealthy relationship, stop and do something.
Stop teen dating violence.
Thank you guys for coming. I think last year, Baron.
The Center for Disease Control, or CDC, is asking Americans to wear masks to prevent the spread of COVID-19. It's important to remember for people who are victims of sexual assault that masks and face coverings can trigger anxiety and fear. Wearing a face covering can trigger memories of abuse, such as the feeling of having a hand covering your mouth or your face being pushed into a pillow. Wearing a mask can make people feel claustrophobic and cause them to lose control of their breathing. Victims, also known as survivors, have reported that not being able to see the faces of those around them is intimidating and makes them worried. Here are possible solutions. 1. Practice wearing your face covering at home. Take the time to get used to how it feels on your face. 2. Find the right face covering, one that is comfortable and doesn't irritate you. 3. Get creative. Maybe wearing a scarf or a handkerchief is less restrictive. 4. Make it smell good. Use a scent that makes you feel relaxed, like lavender. 5. Ask your loved ones for support. Take walks with someone you love to ease into wearing a mask in public. They can also help you find the right covering. We hope that victims and survivors are able to wear a mask safely, but if wearing a face covering causes severe distress, be confident in your decision to not wear one. No survivor should feel shamed for not being able to wear a mask. Stand with survivors in the days ahead. Please show your support for survivors by treating anyone who is not wearing a mask with compassion and dignity.